Oh, there we go. Very good. Oh, there we. Okay. Okay. Boop. Go live. Okay, so it's just going live. Should be working. Okay, cool. I think it's working. Let's just see. See if we can go. Okay. Oh boy. Okay. All right. So I'm just going live here, and then we are gonna do the weekly download. Yay! Weekly download. Weekly download. Okay, cool. That's working. I'm just gonna go over to YouTube so I can see people's YouTube comments. Weekly download. All right. Cool. All right. So, what's up, everybody? Hello. I'm home again. Very, very rare trip home to to be here for a couple days. I got to actually sleep in my real bed next to my actual wife last night. It was amazing. I slept for like 12 consecutive hours. I was so exhausted from last week. Shit was crazy. But yeah, really, really glad to be home. And tomorrow I'm going to be doing a super epic daytime session. I'm going to be finishing up a bunch of mix downs. I managed to get my data back from my hard drive. It turns out it was just the power supply that went when there was that power surge and the blackout when I was working on Cthulhu. So I'm going to be able to take all of our work from Cthulhu and like put it in the track and all that. So yeah, tomorrow's going to be a pretty epic daytime session. I'm going to try and start as early as I can. So rather than doing the weekly download tomorrow, I thought I would do the weekly download today and just get it out of the way. Okay, so I was recently just going through a lot of tracks from my homies on Patreon. And there's like a few things that were kind of standing out that there is like kind of common problems. So I thought I'd address some of them. So the first one was like, much of the time people really, they have trouble with their side chains, you know, and it's like, I don't know, it's like really easy to not or properly, and you lose the impact of your kick and snare because it's just getting stomped all over by like your bass sounds and your synth sounds and stuff. And then another thing that I just want to say right off before we even get into this is basically like a really common mistake when you're mixing is to try to make everything loud and everything clear, okay? And you know, your instinct is to just, you know, try and make sure that you can hear every little sound in the song. But you don't actually really want to hear every sound in the song. You still want all the sounds to be there, but you want a lot of them to be kind of like out of focus and like, you know, kind of not to draw too much attention to themselves. And I think the best way to illustrate that is visually. So here, check this out. So like, you know when you're playing a video game or something and everything looks really fake, or here, I'll move this over so it's not in the way of the camera. But yeah, when you're playing a video game and everything looks fake, right? It looks kind of like this, where like every single thing is in focus. And that's just not how the human eye works, right? You can only see some of the things. You can't see all the things all the time. So it's much more realistic looking when you have what's called a narrow depth of field. So you can see in this second image here, I'll just go zoom in a little bit, but you can see in this second image, a lot of the elements, the other chess pieces are blurry, and it's clear then that this chess piece here is the focus, right? And these other blurry chess pieces are not the focus, right? So whereas here, if you look at this picture, all of the chess pieces are in focus, so it looks kind of like artificial and like not quite right, you know? So it's the same thing with mixing, right? If you have it so that every sound is like super banging loud, it's really hard to, it's really hard to see, or it's really hard to single out which is the main focus of the song and which isn't. So I mean, think about it like to most people, there are two elements in the song. There's the vocal and there's everything else, right? And that's just how people hear it. But you can think about it as just like a lead and accompaniment, So in your track, you always need to think very carefully, like, what is the central element of the track? How can I make that stand out the most, right? But when you're going through your mix and you're working on your sounds, often there's a tendency to try to make everything loud, right? So I'm going to show you how I do my side chains, and it's going to help you to kind of pull the rest of the mix out of the way and let the kick and snare punch through and be as loud and like banging as possible. But at the same time, you got to recognize that you can't have everything be loud. If everything is loud, then nothing is loud, and if everything is super clear, then it's just like your attention is scattered around the composition. And if you just look at these two images visually, right, you can see that this one looks kind of artificial and shitty, and this one with the narrow depth of field where only some elements are in focus, it just looks a lot more pleasing to the eye, right? Well, the same principle affects your ear. So here, scroll down here, these are different CG pool balls. Like, see, this one, it just looks like these pool balls look fake, whereas here, this is like much more realistic, and you can tell which pool ball is the focus. Or like in this ad, the top one is too much. The bottom one, where it's like a little bit out of focus, is just much better. Or here with this chain link fence is a very great illustration, because you can see like only some of it is in focus. And if you're watching films, when you see like a really baller film, they're using this technique a lot, and it really helps your eye to go through the composition of the film. So just recognize that you can't have everything be clear and everything be loud, or else it just becomes confusing for your ears, right? So you want to create like a narrow depth of field, but in terms of audio. So you want a lot of the sounds, cause when you start, you're like, oh, how can I make everything loud? How can I make everything super banging? But ultimately, like, if you try and make everything banging, the song just sounds flat and shitty. Okay, so when you want your leads and stuff to stand out, try and like push other sounds further back in the mix. Like turn the levels down. And like leveling, man, so many problems that you think of as like audio, or it's like an EQ problem or a compressor problem or whatever. So many of those problems are actually just like the leveling, So Scissorhands here said you want to create like a sonic hierarchy. You want it to make sure that it's very clear which sounds are up front, and make it very clear like which sounds are back in the back. And a lot of the time, like, the sounds that you can kind of like really just barely hear will make the whole thing like sound so much more dimensional and really just a lot deeper and a lot richer of a mix. So when you have a lot of sounds, just always ask yourself, like, can I push some of these sounds further back in the mix? Like, what can I get away with like pushing? Oh my god, of course everybody wants to text me as soon as I'm online here. Anyway, so push some of the sounds further back in the mix, and then you really only want a couple of the sounds to be loud. Now, because when you think about it, right, when you're dancing, you're not dancing to the words, typically, you're dancing to the beat and the subs and the bass line, right? So, the kick and the snare and the sub bass, those are kind of the foundation of the whole groove of your song. So you want those sounds to be loud, but you can't have them all be loud at the same time, because like check it out. Like here, I'm assuming everyone has a copy of Massive, so I'm just going to use Massive today for this example. But check it out. Let's say I put a sine wave here, and the smooth square is a sine if you go all the way to the left. Let's say I have a sine wave here, and I'm just going to turn the level all the way up, and let's make sure the voicing is I'm on polyphonic. Yeah, okay, so right? That's a sub bass note. That sounds great. But if you play more than one note in your sub bass, oh my god, like Like it sounds fucking terrible, right? So you've got to like really just have one note in the sub at a time. And then likewise, like if you have kick and snare transients on top of your sub here, I'm just using the Infinite Drum Rack here. If you are a weekly download subscriber, you can download the Infinite Drum Rack. Here I'll put like drum, just so you can see a little bit more clearly, so they don't all start with Ilgates. And then so in some of the earlier weeks of the weekly download, I made the Infinite Drum Rack up for options up as an option for the weekly download, because it's just I use it all the time. It's just really fucking useful. You can make like thousands and thousands of possible drum kits from just this one rack. And then the sub is my Moog, and I took my little fatty and like sampled all the notes and cleaned it all up so that the sub, you can always have like a hardware Moog sub, right? So I'm gonna use those two racks to illustrate this here. Okay, so here we got the sub, right? And like if you're like, listen to that versus this. Like Massive just sounds so thin and digital compared to. It just I don't know why, but it just like it moves way more air and it just sounds a lot more pleasing. So all my subs I always do with the Moog. But here, so I'm gonna go into this Infinite Drum Rack here, and I'm just gonna put some kicks first, so that we can just get like a quick little pattern for illustrative purposes. Oh yeah, I also decided I'm gonna teach everybody to pronounce everything wrong. So illustrative purposes is what we're gonna do. Okay, so yeah, so we got a kick here. So I'm just gonna put like a kick. Just nice simple kick on the Infinite Drum Rack. Part of the beauty of the Infinite Drum Rack is there's these sample selector knobs. Because of a technique that I make called 128s, it's probably my most famous technique. But basically each one of these things, each one of these drum cells is not just one kick, but it is like a whole bank of kicks, and then you can select it with a sample selector knob, right? Really, really useful. So if you just look up like Ilgates making 128s, there's tutorials that I've done all over the place about it. So, but anyway, you can grab the knob and either do it like on your push or whatever, and you can select the a kick. So. Okay, there we go. There's a nice kick. So now if I have this kick and then I have a sub at the same time, so I'm just going to select a sub, right? Now you'll see very quickly, actually here, what key should we go? I'm going to do F minor. That's probably the most like basic key for EDM. And the reason why F minor is the most awesome key is that's really the lowest bass note that you can like reliably hit every time. Because a sound system like in a club or whatever, you can kind of hit 30 hertz, but not really, right? And the low F is like 42, and that's really kind of like the Goldilocks zone as the bass trails off. That's kind of like the lowest note you can reliably hit. And then also a lot of people write in C minor, and C minor is like harmonically related to F minor. Like G, F, and C, those are like your big notes, like they're in like every song. And your song, like if you write your songs in F, they're gonna go with everybody else's songs in F when you're DJing, and like harmonically, if your DJs are using harmonic mixing, G, F, and C come up way more frequently than other keys. But yeah, anyway, so I'm gonna just shift over to F minors. So yeah, let's say those are our notes, okay? So okay, so let's say those are our notes. Now, you may not be able to hear it like if you're listening on a phone or something, but I'm going to just go here to the master, and this is a great trick for seeing if your subs are working. I like to put like a filter on here so that basically the only thing that's coming through is the sub. So check it out. Now, if I'm playing this, you'll hear that there's like a conflict between the sub and the kick, because the kick has a sub in it, right? At the bottom, like here, I'll just put this this on here, so you can see if I slow the kick has sub bass. The kick is coming in. The kick is like a low G, pretty much, right? And then the bass is also quite subby. Right, so to have these two sounds in the same frequency range is going to sound pretty shit, right? So here, this is the two of them on top of each other, and they're going to fight. Right, so if I put here, I'll put a limiter so that it exaggerates the conflict for you, so that those of you who are listening on a phone or whatever will still be able to hear it. Right? So there's a fight there, there's a conflict, because just like you can't have two notes in the bass without it making like a, you know, that's subchords, like, ugh, sounds fucking terrible, right? So you also want to have the kick duck out the sub, right? But the problem is this. Okay, let's say I just want to sidechain the kick, or the sub from the kick. Okay, so I'll do that now. So sidechaining is also called ducking, and it's basically where you have one sound duck out of the way of another sound. So in this case, I want to take this sidechain here, and I'm going to put it on and tell it to take input from the drum, and every time this drum channel hits, it's going to turn the volume down on the sub. Okay, so check it out. But you see how it's like the pumping is like a little bit kind of exaggerated, and it's kind of hard to control. Even if I turn the release down, it takes a while to come back up. Right? Like even with the release all the way down. And when you turn the attack and release way down on a sidechain, you'll hear this like distorting. Like check it out. Ugh, sounds fucking terrible, right? So there's no way to get that really, because I just want the transient of the kick to poke through. I don't want that. I'm just talking about like pure utilitarian sidechaining here. I'm just trying to make sure that the kick transient, the transient is the initial like flick of the sound, you know. So I just want that initial transient to come through, and it's hard to make it like the release time down. The reason why is this kick, right? This kick is going to, like here, I'll sample it so you can just see it, right? So this kick, right? Look at that kick, it's long, right? So when this volume level is affecting the other volume level, right? This is like a big long kick. So that sub has to be like turned way down until the kick is done. But I don't want that. I just want a short little side chain where it just ducks it enough that this part of the sound comes through, right? So I actually need a shorter sound to do the side chaining, all right? So what I like to do is make a channel that has a click on it. And this click, you're never going to hear this click, okay? This channel is going to be muted. And then you take anything that's like super short. So I'll just search for click in my browser here. And Spinning Beach Party, okay. Yeah, great. Let's use this click. Okay, so now we just have this tiny little click, right? You see how short this sound is? Like it's only maximum volume for like an instant, right? And it goes right up. Yeah, it goes very quickly to the click. Okay, so we won't have to do that. But it's only maximum volume for an instant. So I'm just going to copy this to out here, right? And then if I want to take this side chain and tell it to take side chain from the click, right, we're going to get a very different effect where it's only going to be ducked for the tiniest little instant and then come back up. And then the release time on the compressor becomes a lot more musically useful. Check it out. Oh wait, where's the sub? Yeah. Right? So now we don't have that electro house effect anymore. It's a much more transparent sort of a sidechain. It's like, it's just enough for the kick to come through, but you don't really notice it in the mix as much. You know, it's not so much being used for musical effect as it is just to make your mix work out better, okay? So having a click trigger the sidechain is a lot better. Okay, but here, let's put, I'm going to put some other sounds here. So I'm going to very quickly take massive and just make like a kind of chordy patch. Let's see if there's even a, let's see, poly lead. Yeah, that's what I want. Let's get like a poly lead. Oh, I want it to be a little longer, and that's actually a bit loud. So I'm going to turn that. It's a pretty dorky patch. Ooh, that sounds terrible. Okay, I'm gonna go to synth lead. Yeah, let's see if this is. The problem is a lot of these synth leads are like mono sounds. Yeah, I don't really use massive heaps anymore, man, especially without hardware. But I want to make this. It's a thing that you can all download. So I'm using massive because everybody has massive. Yeah, that'll do. Okay, so let's say now that I want to have this massive patch. I'm going to just play this massive patch over top. Okay, so now we have this massive patch that's going over top. But let's say I want to sidechain this massive patch too. Well, I could take the compressor and then also sidechain the massive patch. But when you start doing that, and your track just gets full of sidechains, and there's sidechains on this and sidechains on that, and sidechains add a lot of latency. And if you ever want to like learn how much latency a plugin adds, you just kind of like mouse over it and see. But sidechains add a lot of latency, and the reason why, right, is that Ableton is going to have to slow down. Like, let's say you have a ton of plugins on your kick drum and almost no plugins on your sub, which is usually the case, right? Well, you know, once you have all these like different fancy plugins on your kick, Ableton is going to have to slow everything down. Like here, let's get like a big fat plugin chain on the kick. So let's say I'm going to use like an iZotope Ozone 6, right? So let's say I want to put this on my kick, right? It's gonna really make the kick a kind of more complicated process. So let's see which preset. Click an arrow. Okay, I'm just gonna say low end accent. Great. Okay, so this is just for the sake of argument. So now I've added this. If I mouse over the sidechain, I select it here. Once Ableton is done telling me, see, you'll notice that plugin alone is adding 33 seconds of milliseconds of latency, and that's almost the length of like a short drum hit, right? So now, if Ableton's going to calculate the sidechain, right, for this sub, like sure, it says that if you mouse over this compressor that it's not actually adding any latency, but it is adding latency because this signal has to wait for the signal from the kick drum before it can do the side chaining. So Ableton's going to slow this whole channel down to make it match up with the other channel, and it's going to start adding heaps of latency. And if you're like trying to finger drum or like play, like if I were to go here to massive right now, it's not, or here I'll tell it sidechain from the kick. Sorry, go back over here. This very quickly, yeah. See now, actually I don't know if you can notice, but I can certainly feel a 33 millisecond difference between me playing that sound and hearing that sound, right? So Ableton's slowing everything down. So in the order of operations becomes very important, right? The order of operations is like bed mass, you know, like brackets, exponents, division, multiplication, addition, subtraction, right? Like in mathematics. Well, Ableton has an order of operations as well, right? And basically what's happening in Ableton is first, the MIDI is being calculated and any MIDI plugins you have. So in my case, on the kick here, right, there are some MIDI pitch plugins that are happening really early. So Ableton's going to take this MIDI and it's going to run it through these MIDI plugins, and that happens first. Then from there, the MIDI goes into the instruments, right? And then from the instruments through any plugins that you have on that individual instrument channel. Then from there, it's going to go into groups. Like let's say, you know, these two elements here were grouped. Right, in a group track. And I typically do not use groups because it adds a lot of latency. But then I'll go to the group. And then from there, the output of all the channels and the groups is going to go through all of the sends, and then the master, and then out. Okay? So if you rather than sidechaining on the instrument channel, if you sidechain on the sends, it's not adding any individual latency because the output of all of the channels and the groups is being calculated at the same time, right? As opposed to before when you're interrupting the flow of one channel to slow it down for another channel. So if I want to send these channels, I'm just going to kill these two sends and I'm going to make a new send, right? And this is going to be the sidechain send. So I'm going to go create a return track, right? And I'm going to call this sidechain. Okay, and now I want to send this group, all these sounds, I want to send that to the sidechain. So I'm going to turn up that send, and then here's the kicker. Go to here, the audio 2 field, right? You can see audio 2. It's the same thing here. These two views are exactly the same. They're just different layouts for the same data fields. And I'm going to take the audio 2, and I'm going to say sends only, right? And now you'll see that when I play this group, right, the volume meter is going to go blue. Right? And I'm going to take the sidechain and drag it over to there. All right, and I'm going to kill this one. And now, right, now this sidechain is going to sidechain everything that comes through that channel. This becomes the one sidechain to rule them all and in the darkness bind them. And it's going to save you tons of latency. It's going to make sure, it's going to resolve basically a lot of the problems that you have with sidechaining. Like typically when you're sidechaining, you get latency, you get pops and clicks, and you get it's just really frustrating, right? Also, let's check it out. Let's say, because there's a question here, Nicholas Ent says you can't freeze a track with sidechain, right? So I put the sidechain back on the sub. Say I try to freeze it. It's like, nope, can't freeze it because of the routing of the sidechain compressor. But check it out. If I delete that sidechain there, and the sidechain is instead happening at the send stage, watch this. Right click, freeze, boom, it freezes. So you can now freeze and sidechain at the same time. Also, you eliminate latency. Also, you eliminate pops and clicks. Also, you minimize the amount of CPU usage because you only have one sidechain happening. So really, there's like a ton of reasons to do it this way. Now, if you want to have another sidechain that's just because right now this sidechain is very transparent. The release setting is way down, so you don't really hear it pumping. But like you can have other sidechains in your track, you know. But having just this one stage that gets everything out of the way of the kick and snare transients, you get just like such a clean, tight sidechain sound. So listen to it. And then the release time becomes a lot more usable. But you see how I could turn the threshold way down. Like these settings, you would not be able to get away. Here, I'm going to unfreeze this sub, just and unfreeze it. And I'm going to show you, like, if I take this sidechain and put it on the sub, right, take the same settings, and I'm going to send the sub to the master, right, if I listen to this, like, you hear that clicking? Right? Like you start to get these pretty pronounced artifacts, right? Whereas if I take this sidechain and then put it on here, like you can really get it sounding a lot smoother, and that's like a pretty aggressive sidechain setting, right? So you can get much deeper, punchier sidechains without you can get much deeper, much punchier, more aggressive sidechain sort of an effect without the kind of issues like freezing and artifacts and blah blah blah, right? So I will typically sidechain like that, where I'll have the click track. That is, and then I'll copy it. Like, let's say, so a lot of time too, like you sidechain from the kick, but you might not sidechain from the snare. Like, let's say we wanted to do a break beat here, or let's do it like a, well, that's a little bit of a loud snare. Let's do more of a breakbeat pattern like this, right? So one mistake that people often make is here. I'm gonna switch the snare pattern up, snare sound a little bit. I want to get a better snare sound. Here, and then I think I also have my latency way down there. Yeah, let's go back to that. It's a little bit better. Okay, so, hey, come here, you. All right, actually, I'm gonna save this because it hasn't been saved in a while. Wow, something's got my CPU way up for some reason. I'm not sure why. It's not really a whole lot of plugins going on. Oh, it's Ozone. That's right, because I added Ozone to the Infinite Drum Rack. Yeah, Ozone's like a huge hog, by the way. I'm going to go ahead and take it off now that I've kind of proven the point here. Yeah, Stephen Guma, the clicking is definitely from the attack being too fast, but you can get away with a faster attack than you would otherwise. Okay, I'm going to take off this Ozone. Yeah, watch my processor drop when I take Ozone off. Boom, down to 4%. Like that one instance of Ozone, like it's a hog. It sounds fantastic, but it's a real hog. Okay, so I'm gonna put these ones to, I guess, -6. Okay. But yeah, you can really just get a much more controlled sidechain effect by doing it this way. And then I'm going to go here and move these, but you want to have a click on both the kick and the snare. Okay, so now if I do that, then I'll have a sidechain on both the kick and the snare. And here, watch the way the rhythm comes together. Right? Whereas listen to it before. Like the drums are getting lost. The transients they're not punching through, whereas but yeah, so I call this the sidechain send technique or the sidechain bus, but this is typically how I'll do my sidechaining. And then here, let's take this massive effect here and let's just back it off a little bit, okay? So this is what's called the Abbey Road EQ, where you basically have both a high pass and a low pass operating. I'm gonna turn it way down. But yeah, so if everything's loud, nothing is loud. So it's really important to have your kick and your snare and your sub cracking loud, but the other sounds you want to kind of back them off a bit, as I explained earlier. Okay, so that's just like a little bit of how to sidechain using the send. If you want to get the weekly download every week and actually be able to download these things and watch them in library, check out producerdj.club. It's my new Netflix-style subscription website where you get access to everything, and there's like browsing and all kinds of stuff. You get the first 12 weeks of the weekly download like all at once, and yeah, it's like it's a lot better. It was built by the Plurthlings, who are class of 808 alumni. They're my dogs. I love them very, very dearly. But the new website, producerdj.club, is built by the class of 808 for the class of 808. And yeah, your support makes all of this possible. So please either check out patreon.com/illgates, and you can pledge at whatever level you want there. Or if you want to become a member of the new class of 808 and get access to the weekly download and everything, go check out producerdj.club. That is the new spot. And I actually just had Dov from Muti Music over today, and we have finalized the details for Gateway Records, which is going to be my new label for all of the grads of the class of 808 and all of the people who support what I do. I figure that the best way to promote my teachings is to have successful students who are crushing the game, putting out tracks, and you know, making a career of it. So really, you know, Gateway Records, Class of 808 is me opening up the gates for all of you to go live your dreams. So please, you know, if you enjoy what I'm doing, think about checking out producerdj.club. And if you don't have money and you want to maybe win club membership, check out producerdj.com/win. We have contests every week, and each week someone wins, you know, a 1 month free of being a club member. All right, so I'm going to go just scroll through some of these questions. If any of you have any other questions about anything, I'm going to answer all the questions now. Okay, so how do you record your desktop live? That's a very good question. I use this Blackmagic Ultra Studio Mini recorder, and it takes an HDMI output from my the computer that I'm working on, and it's going into a second computer that's over here. Here, I'll just get the computer. So yes, you can see there's a second computer up there, and then this little thing is actually I don't want to fuck with it too much, so because I might accidentally unplug it. But it's like a little HDMI capture card. They're like $150, and that will allow me to put my computer, like have this computer that just does capture and streaming. Because if you're trying to stream while you're trying to produce, it just everything fucks up. So, okay, so that's Travis Exotherm Chopek. That's how I record the desktop live. Okay, cool. Yep. Thanks for all the support, everybody. I really appreciate your good comments. How do I feel about LFO Tool? Great question. LFO Tool is super cool. You can use it to do side chaining. It has a MIDI input that you can do like a MIDI side chain. You can also do it to like really sculpt your LFOs. Yeah, LFO Tool is amazing. I might do another lesson about LFO Tool, but right now I just wanted to use something that's like just to illustrate the principle of how this is all working with just the Ableton plugins and a copy of Massive. Does freezing tracks eliminate the latency? No, you can't freeze a sidechain track, Nicholas Entz. And yeah, latency, it's a constant battle, man. It's a constant battle, so you really got to learn the habits that will help you to avoid latency. Okay. Oh, hey, Waibakahu. That's one of the plurthlings. Kahu and Monsoon, they are the plurthlings. And yeah, we rocked it hard last week. We did 2 tracks. I'm going to be doing the mix downs tomorrow, as well as Cthulhu. And I got my data back, so I'm so stoked. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to check on YouTube here. Johnny D is going to be in Indy on Thursday. That's going to be good vibes. Bubba Crunk, how do I blow up my YouTube channel? I don't know, man. I that's like for a comedy channel. I think like, you know, just encourage people to subscribe. You know, yeah. And if you're watching on YouTube, next to the subscribe button, there's a little bell, and that turns on notifications. Okay, Glaze 420. Lots of, yeah. Oh yeah, Machine is awesome. I'm a big fan of Machine. I'm gonna do some more some Machine tutorials as well And Jim Tick Jesus asks, are the samples included when downloading the Infinite Drum Rack? And the answer is yes, they are included. That's like a big part of the whole thing. But yeah, and that's all royalty-free sample library. You can either buy that at producerdj.com, but we're relaunching producerdj.com. It's an all-new site built by the Plurthlings pretty soon. But yeah, if you want to get the Infinite Drum Rack, that is available as part of the weekly download. That's in the first 12. The sub rack I used, where it's like all subs from my Moog hardware, that's part of the weekly download too. But yeah, so definitely check out the weekly download. Oh yeah, Mason Hollis uses the bass splitter. Yeah, that's like a classic Ilgates rack. I use that all the time. Okay, cool. Yeah, that looks like that's everything. Any other final questions? Go up real quick. Yeah, but yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Okay, cool. All right, that's all the questions and everything. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks to everyone who supports what I do at www.producerdj.club. Thanks to all the supporters on Patreon. Oh, Dave Tilka with the question at the end, do I like Reason? Yeah, I used Reason for a few of my earlier records, and Lauren, actually, a lot of the early Bass Nectar stuff was Reason. So, back like 10 years ago when we were both figuring our shit out, Reason was... Reason was the way. Chris Good asked, good psychoacoustics plugins. Get the like in Ableton, the convolution reverb is really nice. I use that, but psychoacoustics is more of like, it's kind of just like subtle mixing. It's more like about the mix placement, like what I call ticklers, which are sounds that are at the very, very top of the frequency spectrum or the very, very edges. Those have a kind of psychoacoustic effect. Really, really soft sounds in the mix are kind of psychoacoustics. But yeah, just look up the cube theory of mixing, where like up and down is the frequencies, left and right is panning, and then depth is achieved through effects like reverb and chorus and stuff. Just think of your mix like a cube, but if you look up like mix and cube, you can learn about that. Okay, cool. All right, well, hey, I'm Bubba Crunk. I'll check out your channel, and I love comedy as well. I actually have a secret stand-up comedy video that I posted up on Patreon, so if you want to see me doing stand-up at Burning Man, check it out at Patreon. I think it's pretty much open to all the patrons. But yeah, patreon.com/Ilgates. www.producerdj.club is the place. That's like the #1 best way to go to get all the workshops, all the weekly download, all the everything. And then if you are broke and you still want a taste of the Producer DJ Club, you should check out producerdj.com/win, and there is a contest where we give away a club membership every week. So yeah, check it out. All right, lots of love, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you tomorrow. I'm going to be producing all day on the live stream, finishing up some tracks. So yeah, lots of love. Take care, have fun making music, and happy downloading to all you weekly downloaders. This template will be available very shortly. I'm going to post it up on Patreon and the Producer DJ Club. All right, peace out. Oh, gotta hit the stop. There we go. All right, peace out, everybody. Lots of love.